Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the December the 7th meeting of the Arkansas Highway Commission, our last meeting of the year. I have a lot of good information to share today. I want to welcome everyone in the commission room with us today, and all of those who are joining us via the live stream. At the risk of omitting special guests who are with us today, I'm going to take that risk and omit them because there are two people I'm going to recognize here, and one is former Mayor Harold Perrin. Harold, we're mighty happy to have you with us today. And the other is my former colleague and current County Judge Barry Hyde. I want to welcome Judge Hyde to be here with us today. Are there others amongst my commissioners that you all, since I'm recognized, we don't normally do that anymore because I always leave somebody out, but I'm not turning around looking at anybody, so if y'all see anybody else you need, will you call them to my attention. Thank you for all being here today. We really appreciate it. And of course we knew Harold was back because we saw the famed cookie here, and we appreciate that. And we also have a little thank you from our former chairman, Dickie Ray Trammell. So we're remembering a lot of old friends today. I'll remind everyone as we proceed through the today's agenda, make sure you have your microphones on when you're talking and turn them off when you're not, so that we have being heard by those who are joining us via live stream. Okay, first thing we want to do is we'll take a motion to do our minute orders by electronic signatures. Motion.
So moved.
Motion. Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Approved. We'll do that, Dave. And the second item on our agenda, or first item actually on the agenda, is approval of the minutes from our last meeting, November the 3rd. You've all had an opportunity to read those. Any comments, changes, or anything? If not, I need a motion to approve the minutes. Have a motion and second. Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. The motion is passed. Next item on the agenda is a presentation on autonomous vehicles. As most of you in the hearing room here know, and certain commissioners, Walmart and Gaddick have been partnering on a driverless truck project. And today we have with us Mr. Richard Steiner, the head of policy and communications for Gaddick, that's going to give us a presentation. And I haven't seen, there's Mr. Gaddick right there. Mr. Gaddick, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to recognize you, and the floor is yours. I mean, Mr. Steiner, excuse me. I mean, you're not Mr. Gaddick, Mr. Steiner. You're going to tell us about Gaddick. Okay, we got it right. I didn't know whether it's Gaddick tell us about Steiner or Steiner tell us about Gaddick. You'll get me straightened out. I'll thank you appropriately.
How's that? Better? There we go. Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank the Commission for having me here today. Absolute pleasure and a real privilege to speak with you all today, so thank you for your time. Rich Steiner, Head of Policy and Communications at Gaddick. I'll be your resident British presenter today, so try not to hold that against me. I got a lot of exciting stuff to share with the Commission and folks in the room today, so honored to be able to do so. I'll provide a little bit of background and context first of all, and then move into some of the groundbreaking world firsts that we've been able to achieve here in the state of Arkansas. So first, a little bit of background and context on Gaddick. I'll just set the stage for anyone that's less familiar. So if you look at the spectrum of autonomous, driverless delivery, on one end of the spectrum, on the left there, you've got long haul. So let's imagine your Class 7, Class 8, tractor-trailer, 53-footers. It's a very specific type of autonomous technology required to drive highway speeds, highway distances, big payloads. The other end of the spectrum, last mile or B2C technology. So typically smaller vehicles, limited carrying capacity, limited speeds. Imagine perhaps, for example, you're having a pizza or a small amount of groceries delivered to your doorstep, so B2C model. Where we live and succeed at Gaddick, B2B, short haul. So we optimize hub and spoke supply chain models on behalf of major retailers, Walmart included, delivering goods between dark stores and retail locations, smaller distribution centers. The reason why this is so relevant today, don't need to tell everyone in this room, consumers, very demanding. Everybody wants their goods in near real time today. No one's willing to wait, say, 3, 4, 5 days to get their goods. Everyone wants their goods within a 1 to 2 hour delivery window. This is where we come in. We automate that on-road portion of the supply chain in our fleet of autonomous box trucks, ranging in size between 11 to 26 foot. So a little bit about our partnership with Walmart. Absolutely honored and privileged to have been working commercially with Walmart since June of 2019 in Bentonville, Arkansas. It's where we launched our commercial operations with Walmart. I won't list off all of the advantages of our solution up there because you can see them, but in short, some really critical pieces to be aware of. First and foremost, we're improving safety. Second, making sure that the supply chain is reliable and scalable, and offering a number of operational efficiencies, lowering costs, and critically, reducing delivery times with our solution. You can see some pictures there of our trucks, but most excitingly, I'll have a video to share with you at the end of the presentation as well, so you can really see what we're doing. So the reason I'm here today is just to talk about our progress under the state's autonomous vehicle program. First of all, I just want to thank the Commission, the state, and many local officials as well. We've had such supportive legislation here at the state level. We've had fantastic local engagement sessions with folks right the way across the board at the local level where we've been deploying. Everybody's been incredibly supportive of this technology, so I want to thank folks in this room and across the state as well for enabling the innovative technologies that we've put into place with Walmart. We've created a significant number of jobs. The economic benefits to the state are clear to see. And critically, in terms of our use case, what we've been doing is enabling the real value of autonomous technology for Walmart's customers. So here's a map of our route in Bentonville. It's a 7.1 mile loop from Walmart Dark Store to the neighborhood market. So this is the route we've been operating on since June of 2019. We say that we know this route more intimately than anyone else on the planet. We've been doing it multiple times per day, 7 days a week, up to 12 hours a day for about 2.5 years now. So when I say we know it intimately, we really do. And a very key point about our technology here and what we do and how we're able to achieve it, it's fixed point to fixed point. So coming back to the safety component, what we do is structured autonomy. We're not delivering goods to hundreds of thousands of consumers' doorsteps over large areas. What we're doing is constraining the challenge. I don't want to make anything about autonomy sound easy, but the more that you can constrain the challenge, the safer you're able to bring a product to market more quickly. So a little bit more on that. We have a 100% safety record. I'd like to flag that front and center. We're very proud of it. Again, speaking to our use case, because of our fixed point to fixed point delivery system, we have the luxury of avoiding tricky intersections, schools, hospitals, fire stations, heavily pedestrianized areas. Those fixed repeatable routes we've been operating on since June of 2019 have enabled us to reach a very safe level of system performance with relatively little data compared to, again, those B2C models and or passenger transportation. So very proud to share, and perhaps some of you may have seen the press release a little while back. We achieved a worldwide first here with Walmart in the state of Arkansas. It's not just a first for the autonomous trucking industry, it's a first for the worldwide. It's the first time that any company has removed the safety driver from behind the wheel of an autonomous truck. What we're doing is we're really changing the retail industry landscape here by unlocking the advantages of autonomous delivery for Walmart's customers. I want to flag as well, this is not a demonstration. These are repeated runs that we are doing fully driverless with our customer in Arkansas. And again, creating new economic opportunities, new job positions, and it's a real first from a commercial perspective as well, because we're generating revenue with every delivery as well. So in terms of that scalability, this is really Arkansas leading the way as far as this file is concerned. And again, we're very privileged to be doing it here in the state. So some of the technical KPIs I wanted to share today. I'll actually have you look at the right-hand side first with the manned run. So that's having a safety driver behind the wheel. As I mentioned, we've been doing that now for nearly 2.5 years. So we've actually hit close to 130,000 autonomous miles driven. Again, the length of the route that we're operating on, that short-haul B2B route, is 7.1 miles, and we've fulfilled 33,000 autonomous orders. So this is 33,000 orders for Walmart's customers with our autonomous deliveries. And then fast forwarding here to August in 2021 and the major breakthrough that we made, this is now operating without a safety driver behind the wheel. Total of fully driverless miles driven, over 3,000 there. That's 437 round trips. And when you see the figure of 0 active assists we're defining as when a human or a site technician is physically needed to go to the site of the breakdown, should there be one, and assist the truck in person. That has not happened at all. Again, 100% safety record, safe and secure operations. So wanting to flag that front and center as well. A little bit of a deeper dive into the technology and how we've been able to achieve this. Again, if you look at the first box there, we need exponentially less data given our use case. Again, fixed point to fixed point, simplifying and constraining the use case has enabled us to get to market faster. I'm not an engineer, but I'll do my best, my level best to explain the second box. So we take a deterministic learning first approach. So what I mean by this is we're combining classical robotics, which is essentially instructing our vehicles to follow a set number of rules, and also employing machine learning as well, whereby the truck is able to continually learn and evolve and understand how to respond to safely and securely more unusual interactions with all road users. The third and final box there, redundancies at all levels across every single aspect of our system. Every single aspect of critical driving functions, so steering, braking, accelerating. We work with OEM partners such as Ford and Isuzu for our vehicle platforms and have redundancies across every single facet of our operations. What we're doing here, and we consider this to be absolutely critical, is contributing to a more safe and responsible logistics community. I won't go over this entire schematic, but one thing I want to flag here, this is a stat I love. So our vehicle employs the full sensor suite. When I say the full sensor suite, I mean radars, cameras, LiDARs, GNSS. So our trucks can see about the length of 3 football fields, 360 degrees, day or night. So these vehicles in their operations, and we'll see this from the video in a little while, we are operating round the clock, as I mentioned, so it's day, night, multiple weather conditions that we're able to handle. So we've reached the point where we're actually looking to be able to scale this on a significant level. And with that, I thank you for your time, and I believe we're able to show a video. Perhaps it'll come up after. Okay. it actually gets quite boring quite quickly, which is exactly what you want, because the truck is doing exactly what it should be doing, safe, secure operations. And that's what we do at Gaddick. So thank you so much to the Commissioner. I really appreciate the time, and to all in the room, and happy to take questions if there are any, and if there is time for that.
I've got a question, sir. So do your company, do you supply the technology for these vehicles, or do you supply the technology and the vehicles? I noticed this one that you had on here was a Ford. So do you all buy the new trucks, put the technology on it, and operate it for Walmart, or do you all just own the technology?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we offer autonomous delivery as a service. That's what we call it. So we offer the complete package, if you like. So we integrate our proprietary autonomous driving technology software, which we develop in-house, and we integrate that with an off-the-shelf sensor suite. So we do source the LiDARs, radars, cameras, GNSS, but integrate that in a proprietary fashion with the technology software that we integrate. And coming back to the entire service, so we offer that end-to-end solution. So we offer the full package, if you like, to ensure that the goods get from point to point with customers like Walmart.
So do you envision, or I'm sure you've got some charging stations that you charge these vehicles with. Do you envision that becoming more of a factor as you go forward? Maybe are the distances going to be further apart, or do you envision them just being charged at one end or the other of the delivery chain, or are you going to be depending on public charging stations at some point in time?
Yeah, so we actually launched the industry's first electric autonomous box trucks with Walmart in Louisiana. And it's been a really interesting use case for some of the points that you've hit on there very accurately, which is the shorter distances that we operate on with our middle mile B2B short haul use case. Versus, say, the longer haul trucking side of things. Because of the shorter distances, we're able to grab a charge when we need to as our vehicles load and unload. So we start the day at the vehicle depot, and then we'll move to a dark store location, retail location, back to dark store, and so on, as I've outlined. And we have charging stations at those Walmart locations where we're able to grab a charge when we load and unload. So in terms of operational hours, it's continuous service. We never have to stop, so it's hyper efficient. And that works really well for those shorter routes. As battery life and the technology for electric vehicles, improves and enhances in time, that will be possible over longer routes. But for the time being, it's inherent to our use case to focus on those shorter B2B routes that I've described.
Okay, thank you.
Just interested in knowing what you see your company doing in Arkansas, let's say over the next 5 years. Where would you be? What would you do? I'm sorry about that. Let me repeat that. What do you see your company doing in Arkansas over the next 5 years? Where will you be? What companies will you be servicing, and how pervasive will this be?
That's a great question. Put it this way, we're laser customer focused, and we expand where our customers need us. What I would say is that the hub and spoke supply chain model that we focus on exclusively in terms of optimization, that model is becoming increasingly important to all of our customers. So the reason why that's the case is because micro-fulfillment centers and dark stores where goods are pooled that consumers don't actually have access to, they're coming closer and closer and closer to consumers in urban and semi-urban areas, so that middle mile of the supply chain can be more active and ensure that consumers can get their goods in that quick, short delivery window that I've described. So because that model is becoming so relevant and increasing all of the time, our solution becomes more relevant all of the time. What you need is more trucks, more trips, and more drivers to be able to make that model work, and that model is only going to get bigger. So the way we see it, in order for retailers to stop their margins from shrinking and to ensure that the supply chain continues to be as robust as it needs to be, especially in this day and age when it's never been more important. We certainly see our solution expanding exponentially in the coming years.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question. Yes, sir. I was curious about, when you said provide the complete package there, does that include the charging stations at the individual stores and at the delivery depot?
We do work with charging station partners for the charging stations.
Okay. Are those public charging stations, I'm curious, or are they just proprietary to your endeavor?
They're proprietary to our endeavor, that's
Okay.
right.
Thank you.
No problem.
One more quick question, and I'm just trying to place everybody in the right spot. In the paper around here, the last couple of months, there's been a lot of press about your company over probably a year ago, and really the first to put the products out there. But then this other company, Canoe, has been in the paper a lot. Is that a competitor of yours?
So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be able to speak to their operations in great detail. But
Have you ever heard of them?
we know them. We know them.
Okay.
We know them. Yeah. And I guess one thing I would say is, Northwest Arkansas in particular has become a hub of innovative, development and deployments, which we welcome from the perspective of what it is that we're doing. Walmart's involved with all kinds of, exceptional approaches to serving their customers with other companies. But our focus exclusively is that B2B short-haul route. So the way we see it, we are leaders on the middle mile segment, and long may that continue.
So some people might view that as a competitor at some point.
Depending on how their business model evolves,
Yeah.
we shall see.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay. Wasn't trying to
No.
put you in a corner. I was just curious. I don't know what either one of them do,
Absolutely,
really.
fair question.
Yours or theirs. Thank you.
No problem.
I had a question. So my understanding is your trucks don't require any additional infrastructure than a traditional truck on the roadway. And also going forward, when I assume you have a lot of cameras on these trucks, and going forward the next 5 years, do you imagine that being live monitored or sort of stored, or what is your model for that part of safety and that part of the innovation?
Yeah, great question. So to the first point, you're absolutely right. We don't require connected infrastructure in the way that some models do, and we set up our use case very deliberately in that sense. Simply because, well, two reasons really. First of all, we didn't want to wait for that type of connected infrastructure to advance to the point where we would be able to use it effectively in order to have our trucks on the road. Second, we consider it of critical importance to safe operations to be able to handle all components of safe operations on the road at the vehicular level. And to the second question, we do have a human in the loop, is what we say. So a remote supervisor is monitoring every single aspect of every single step of every journey that any one of our trucks takes, all being monitored. The reason being, should there be a reason for a human to become involved? So this could be the vehicle encounters unexpected roadworks or an accident that it suddenly has to contend with that takes place in front of the vehicle. The vehicle would then be connected to the remote supervisor on a continued basis. The remote supervisor could provide a high-level decision, should it be needed, to the vehicle. And I want to be very clear, this is not remote control teleoperations. The human that is in the office, HQ, at the vehicle hub, is not controlling the vehicle. It is providing a yes or no response to a particular decision that needs to be made that would then be carried out by the vehicle at the local level. But having that human in the loop is very important, again, from a redundant safety perspective.
So I saw you haven't had any assist needed on your route, but I'm sure the road has stopped for some reason at some point. So does the truck just waits for whatever issue to be resolved as far as the accident or traffic? Or does it reroute?
So we haven't had to encounter that yet with our fully driverless operations, but as and when that does happen, again, the human in the loop would be able to provide that yes or no response to the computer, to the vehicle system, I should say, so that the vehicle will then proceed accordingly based upon that decision.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Any further questions? Richard, thank you very much. Very interesting and informative presentation. We appreciate you being here today.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
Before we go to the next agenda item, I was remiss in not introducing another special guest here. My longtime friend, Gene Hickenbottom, representing Senator Bozeman's office. So, Gene, where are you back there in the corner? Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for Senator Bozeman having you represent his interest here today. Next item on the agenda are consideration of our minute orders, and as we have done previously, if you have a question or comment on a particular minute order, if you let me know, it'd be recognized, and if not, we'll consider the minute order approved and ask Dave to move on to the next one. And with that bit of information, Dave, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Minute order 1 has to do with the purchasing committee awards, as always. Minute order 2, District 2, Jefferson County. We are declaring certain property simply as surplus property. Minute order 3, another property transaction, can be found on page 30. In Pulaski County, changing property on U.S. Highway 67 from a capital asset to right-of-way. Minute order 4, again in Pulaski County, transferring a portion of a right-of-way included in the 30 Crossing project to a local family trust and the LLC they've established. Minute order 5 in Mississippi County, changing property on State Highway 77 from a capital asset to right-of-way. And finally, minute order 6 makes it official, opening bids for the January 12th letting. That is it. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Pretty short and sweet. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. That'll be a report, State Highway Revenue Update from Mr. Patrick Patton, our CFO. Patrick, you are recognized.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. We will start with our budgeted revenues for operations. Total state highway revenues, which includes our motor fuel, registration, permits, penalties, up 6.7% or $9.3 million. Revenue from natural gas tax severance continues to climb. It's 760% over what we had last year. Therefore, our total revenues are 16.9 or 12.2% above budget or over last year. Going to budgeted versus actual, the state revenues, as you can see on the far right, is $14.3 million or 10.1% over our budgeted. Our actuals over budget. Next slide is budgeted revenue year over year for Act 416. If you look at this year, we're at 20 million versus 19 million last year. The breakout of that between gas and diesel is 10.9 million for gas, 9.1 million for diesel, and then there's $9 million or $900,000 in registration fees, for a total of 1.1 million over or 5.6% over last year. When you look at the budgeted versus actual for Act 416, you get some of the same numbers. Motor fuels 20 million. If you look to the far right, we're $700,000 or 3.5% over our budget for Act 416 revenue. Flipping over to consumption, gas is up 23.3 million gallons or 4.7%. Diesel's up 17.1 million. Total consumption is 40.4 million gallons or 5.6% ahead. If you look,
Patrick?
Yes.
Excuse me, one question back on that Act 416. Is that a fiscal year computation there, or is that since the inception, or what exactly
It's just
is that?
It's just fiscal year.
Okay. So, do you track, well, I guess it'd be easy to figure it, but I mean, since inception, how much more has
It's a little,
come in?
it's a, The budget is about 95 million a year. So if you take about a year and a half that we've got, about 150 million.
So that money that comes in on that, then for the next year, it's just added into the budget, whatever excess it was or
It's used for
shortfall.
system preservation. It's got
Yeah.
its specific uses.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And just to remind you, the casino revenue is 0 right now. That comes in at the last day of the fiscal year. If we look at the rolling 12 months of consumption, overall consumption's up 5.94%. Gas is up and diesel's up, but the alternative fuel's down. Moving on to the half-cent sales tax for 2022. Once again, we're above in October, almost $900,000. I've got the November number, almost $900,000 again for November, above DF&A's projections. So if you include the November number, the 1.7 million actually transfers into 2.6 million for the year, above DF&A's projections for sales tax. If you look at the half-cent sales tax for the since inception, I'll just go ahead and include the November number. You've got the October number of 26.1 million up here, but if you include the November, almost 900,000, it's 27 million over DF&A's projections since inception. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Let me, Laurie, let me ask you before I turn it over to you, and this may be still part of Patrick's presentation. Could you give us a little information as to how, when we're $27 million over budget, how this is flowing into our cap projects? How does that work, the excess money?
Well, as you can imagine, it's a living thing. The
Yeah.
projects come in more than what we estimated or less, and so the amount that we need to deliver those projects changes with every project we let to contract, with change orders, everything that's going on. And then we get this money that goes into a separate account that's used to pay for those projects. And at the end of the day, when we're through, we'll have an accounting. If there's any additional money that was left over, we'll decide what to do with it. If we need to supplement that funding to pay for all those projects, we will, but that's how it'll work.
Okay, and I surmise that's kind of how it worked, but to somebody looking in, you know, you're hearing it's like $28 million. That's a lot of money there. So where is it going? And obviously there's a lot of variance in our estimates when we started out and compiling what the cost of all these projects is going to be. That has substantially increased. So we're fortunate that we're 27 or $8 million over rather than $27 million short. Yeah.
I'm very fortunate.
Okay. Thank you. That's just for clarification. Thank you very much. Okay, Director Tudor, I'm going to turn the rest of the program over to you now.
All right.
It's all
Thank
yours.
you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Well, next on the agenda, we are going to have, I'm very happy to introduce Vivian Wong with the Federal Highway Administration. Normally, Kevin Thornton gives you an update on all things Federal Highway, but today we've got the person that knows everything about Federal Highway Administration, because she oversees the Federal Highway Administration Arkansas Division, which includes an office of 16 professionals, and they are very instrumental in helping RDOT deliver the federal aid program each year. Vivian began her career with FHWA in 2008 in Colorado, and has held positions in New Mexico and in California. So she comes from the West. She has also worked in the private sector as a roadway and drainage engineer. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in civil engineering from the University of Florida, so she's all the way to the east. And she is also a licensed professional engineer in the state of Florida. And I'll have to say, Vivian and I started at the same time. When I became director, she became division administrator. And she has been such a huge help to me and to RDOT as we've navigated through the last 2 years in some difficult times. So we appreciate Vivian and her staff, and so help me to welcome Vivian.
Thank you, Director, for inviting me today, and thank you, the Commission, for having me. It's an exciting time to be here. There's a new bipartisan infrastructure law. As the Director mentioned, I'm Vivian Wong. I'm with the Federal Highway Administration Arkansas Division. This morning I'm going to provide an overview of the bipartisan infrastructure law. It's also known as BILL, or the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. I'm going to mostly refer to it as the infrastructure law, because anytime I hear bill, it makes me think of a person. So it's just to kind of give you those highlights. So the infrastructure law has been described as a once-in-a-generation investment in infrastructure. It will grow the economy, enhance U.S. competitiveness, create good jobs, and make the U.S. economy more sustainable, resilient, and equitable. It invests around $550 billion in new federal funds in infrastructure. It also represents the largest dedicated bridge investment since the construction of the interstate system. And on average, BILL is estimated to support around 2 million jobs a year. So this is a look at all of the Department of Transportation modes. The highlighted one, that's the Federal Highway Administration. That's what I'm going to focus on today. So we're looking at $350 billion over 5 fiscal years. So it funds highway programs, as I said, for 5 years. It includes more than a dozen new highway programs. So this includes new formula funding programs, also known as apportioned funds, other formula programs under the general fund, as well as several new discretionary grant programs. With these new programs, there are new opportunities for local governments and other non-traditional entities to receive highway funding. So FHWA has not previously distributed funding on this scale to non-state entities. So this is going to be new for us as well. As the Director mentioned, my office is 16 people overseeing, for Arkansas, we're looking at $3.8 billion over 5 years. Also, under the new infrastructure law, the highway account of the Highway Trust Fund would receive a $90 billion transfer from the general fund. Kevin Thornton has given some presentations on the cash management procedures that we would need to implement whenever the Highway Trust Fund dips below a certain level. With this transfer from the general fund, the Highway Trust Fund would be solvent for several years, and so we would not need to go into those cash management procedures. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the highway programs and that $350 billion and how that's broken up. So there's $303 billion. Again, this is for the entire federal aid highway program. We're hoping in a couple weeks we'll actually get the breakout for Arkansas. Those apportionment notices are slated to come out very, very soon. But here, this represents an average annual increase of 29% over the normal contract authority. This is looking at the fiscal year 21 levels. It continues all of the current highway programs and also adds 2 new formula programs. These are, there's $47 billion in general fund for highway infrastructure programs. Most of this will be distributed by formula, but there is a set that you'll see here, 28%, that will be discretionary. And these are the categories for the highway infrastructure programs or the general fund programs under the new infrastructure law. So the most significant amount of funding is for the new bridge formula program, as well as the new national electric vehicle formula program. You might recognize the infra program. That is still one of our discretionary programs, and there's also a couple new ones, such as the Reconnecting Communities pilot program. So I mentioned that there's a new part for non-traditional recipients for federal aid highway funding programs. This is not all of it. This is not an all-inclusive table of it. Traditionally, Federal Highways has provided funding through the state departments of transportation. And while that continues through a big bulk of it, there are several new, especially the discretionary programs, that allow eligibility for local governments, for the metropolitan planning organizations, and tribes, territories, and federal land management agencies. So this just kind of gives you a quick snapshot. It highlights the discretionary programs, but as I mentioned, it's not all inclusive of all the eligibilities and entities that can apply. So looking at the apportioned or the formula programs, I only highlighted 3 here, but if you want more information, I'm happy to come back and bring more to that. But I just wanted to highlight from these, these are our typical ones. It's alphabet soup. It's the National Highway Performance Program, this Surface Transportation Block Grant. The 6 on the left, those are the ones that have been within MAP 21 and the FAST Act. There are 2 new ones on the right, the Carbon Reduction and the Protect. I'm not going to go into detail on those today. Our agency will need to go through figuring out what's in there, what kind of guidance is going to be needed. Maybe there's regulations for that. So we're going to kind of focus on our tried and true. So some changes for the National Highway Performance Program. There's a new program purpose to the NHPP. It's providing support for activities to increase the resiliency of the national highway system. So with that, it includes new eligible activities, resiliency improvements on the NHS, as well as protective features on federal aid highways and bridges off of the NHS. For the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, again, this also includes new types of eligible projects. It increases the set-aside for off-system bridges and allows funds to be used to replace low-water crossings with a bridge. It also adds 2 new population categories for sub-allocated funding. So previously, those 2 new categories, they had been lumped into one, and now they've been separated out. And then the Highway Safety Improvement Program, one of the eligibilities that had been added back in that in MAP 21 had been removed is this non-infrastructure safety projects. So that now the education, research, enforcement, emergency services, safe routes to school, those are now back in and eligible for HSIP funding. And then finally, for other safety-related provisions, what I want to highlight here is the Complete Streets Standards and Policies. Under this, it requires states to use at least 2.5% of their planning and research funds towards one or more activities related to complete streets or multimodal travel, and that's also true for the MPOs. Next, we'll move on to the planning and project delivery. So a few changes for the Metropolitan Planning Program. One thing I'll highlight here is when an MPO designates officials or representatives for the first time, it requires consideration of equitable and proportional representation of the population served by the MPO. Another one I'd like to highlight is it allows MPOs to use social media and web-based tools during the transportation planning process to foster public participation and solicit public feedback. So this one was key during the pandemic where we couldn't hold in-person meetings and have those public hearings. This now allows for a much broader way to reach out to other people. And then a couple of things that I wanted to mention in terms of project delivery, especially with the environmental process. There are some changes under the national, under NEPA and the environmental process that we go through in those documents. So with the environmental impact statements, under the infrastructure law, it limits documents to less than 200 pages to the maximum extent practicable. There have been some EISs that have been running into the thousands and thousands of pages, and so this would limit it. It also would develop a schedule for the average completion to be under 2 years. You may have heard previously some projects would take 10 or 15 years to actually get through the environmental process to construction. This would tighten that down. we currently have an EIS in process that is working towards these goals anyway, so I think we have a pretty good head start on this. And then lastly, under the categorical exclusions part of it, this would promote the use of FHWA's categorical exclusions by other federal agencies. A lot of times other federal agencies haven't been able to use our environmental documents. They've had to create their own for some of the same projects, and this would hopefully reduce some of that redundancy. And then the last part that I'll highlight here is actually under the early utility relocation. Previously, we had to complete the environmental process before we could move into utility relocation and reimburse that. This would actually allow for federal funds to reimburse these projects that start early utility relocation. So this will allow us to kind of shrink down the timeline that it takes from start to finish. And then a couple other highlights within the new infrastructure law. We're going to talk about the emergency relief program. So here, there are a couple additional eligibilities that allow ER projects to incorporate or to mitigate the risk of recurring damage from extreme weather, from flooding, and other natural disasters. It also includes a list of protective features that are eligible expenses. And then the other part that I'd like to highlight is under the federal share. So it extends the time period that the federal share would be 100%, which is from 180 days. It's now been extended to 270 days. So that gives us a little bit more time to assess the damage, get out there and make those repairs, and use 100% federal funds for. Just one highlight on this one is the roadway design guide. This provision allows local jurisdictions to use their own roadway design guide that's different from the state's for non-NHS projects, as long as the design guide is recognized by FHWA and adopted by the local jurisdiction. And then for this one, I wanted to note on the preliminary engineering, the new infrastructure law repeals the requirement where states would have to repay the federal aid reimbursement if the project did not proceed to right-of-way or construction within 10 years. So that requirement's no longer there. And we have a website that actually went live last week. It includes a much more extensive presentation than this one, as I mentioned. There's a lot more that I have not touched on within this, including some of the bridge, other discretionary programs. There's also a couple Federal Register notices that are already out, one specific to electric vehicle charging, another one generally on the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. With that, I'll take any questions.
I don't even know if I know enough to ask the question, but I'm going to try. The allocation for the state, you had a slide up there that showed allocations for different subcategories, right? State, IPO, so the MPO will have money allocated to them separate from what the state is. Is that right?
So I think, is it this one that you might have had a question on?
Yes. Yes.
So with this one, what the MPO would be able to do, and I'll highlight, it's the Safe Streets and Roads for All program. This is a discretionary program. So if an MPO or local government was interested, they would have to apply and compete against all the other locals in the nation. And so this wouldn't necessarily be distributed by formula for them. This would be allocated by the department for those projects. They would make those selections, whether it's $1 million or $5 million, they would make that decision through the discretionary grant process.
So the MPO just administers the program, right?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Vivian, thank you. This is overwhelming amount of information, and it's a good problem to have, but I know that your office has been busy. The NEPA requirements, that all seemed like it was far more efficient. It'd be beneficial to Arkansas. I had a question on the block grants, the population category changes. Will that be helpful to Arkansas specifically? And, or do you think, I mean, do you see a substantive change with that, or? I just wondered with Arkansas's rural populations if that was something that would be helpful to us or not helpful to us.
That's a good question. I might have to get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
I can probably address that. The amount of money won't change. How it's distributed among where we can spend that money will change based on the population. So it's not really helpful or not helpful. It's just that additional eligibility for that funding.
It's another step to take.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And as you mentioned, this is a lot of information. There's more to come. The department's trying to figure out what will go first, because there may be things that require policy changes or regulations, and that regulatory process isn't really the fastest. So they'll have to kind of decide what's going to go first, what can wait. There are other things that we can go ahead and move forward with. So that's what we're trying to work through right now. Especially, I think the critical part is what's the funding distribution for all the states. So.
Which raises an interesting question. You may have answered, and I didn't pick up on it. But what do you see as the timeline for funds actually starting to roll out on various categories?
So at least for the STBG, the NHPP, our traditional formula funds, as soon as we get those apportionment notices, we can go ahead and start. And those eligibilities, this is kind of, it's been there, I want to say since MAP 21 or the FAST Act. So we can go ahead and start obligating those projects. It's the new, the carbon reduction one, the PROTECT formula, as well as some of the discretionary ones that will take a little bit more time for us to get to and to figure out what those requirements and criteria will be. But it shouldn't slow down any of the current projects that are in the pipeline and any new projects that are coming out. So especially with our formula and apportion programs, we should be good to go there.
And I wanted to add one more thing, just for the public who's listening, just want to reiterate the half-cent sales tax and the excellent work that our team does helps poise RDOT to be able to take advantage of some of this funding and the matching dollars that we need to have to actually obtain some of this funding. And so we wouldn't be able to do that if we didn't have a well-run agency. Just wanted to point that out.
Yes, for
Doing
sure.
a great job.
With the increase in some of the federal funding, with that comes requirements for matching, and RDOT is very well poised to be able to capitalize on that.
Vivian, I have a question, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here and sharing all this information with us. On the 9 categories, the HIP funding, first of all, let me make sure I understand. This is new money, projected new money.
Yes.
The bridge formula program, 27.5 billion. It'll go out according to the formulas to the state. Can you tell us what you know about the 9.2 billion new money on the bridge investment program? What criteria is available on how those funds will be distributed?
So let me see if it's in these notes. So I don't have the criteria here. I have it on my computer that's over there. So I can probably answer that for you after the meeting.
Okay, yeah, we'll I'm just interested. I know it's all new, but this just for our information, anybody listening, this 9.2 billion will be end up being, the determination will be competitive on whatever the criteria that's ultimately established determine how it's distributed. Is that generally correct?
Yes, the 9.2 Bridge Investment Program is a competitive program,
Okay.
so this would have to be applied nationwide.
Okay. Well, I'll get the rest of it after we get through. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay. I'm sorry, Director, it's yours. You're supposed to be asking.
Thank you, Vivian. That was excellent information. I appreciate you. So just as an aside, there's a significant amount of our effort at RDOT is administering the federal aid program and making sure that we qualify for these funds. And our staff does an excellent job, and FHWA does an excellent job keeping us within the lines, and it is a huge effort to administer this federal aid program overall. Okay, so upcoming events. Lots on the calendar. We're starting off tomorrow with District 6 Service Awards, and Commissioner Holder will be accompanying me there. December 9th, District 2 Service Awards. Chairman Moore will be accompanying me to that one. District 3, Commissioner Holder again with me. Then District 4 on December 13th, Commissioner Taldo and Commissioner Gibson will be at that one. And December 14th, District 1 with Commissioner Gibson and myself. And I'll just say, and then December 15th will be our Central Office Service Awards, and that'll be here in the auditorium. And Chairman Moore will be at that one. Is that tentative? You're working on, we're not for sure yet, right? And then Commissioner Gibson and Commissioner Holder. And I'll just say I appreciate you all coming out to do these service awards. It means a lot to the staff for you to be there. It's really a great time just to have fellowship with all the employees out in the field and here at the central offices. So we really appreciate that. On December 16th is a Good Roads Executive Board meeting. And then December 16th, some more service awards. I won't go through all that. December 17th, again, District 10. January 6th is the Arkansas Asphalt Pavement Association Technical Conference, which I'm speaking at. Then there's a PE board meeting on January 11th. We forgot to put the Christmas holiday in here, but we have got Martin Luther King's holiday in here, so we'll be closed on the 17th, and we're also we'll be observing Christmas at 24th and 25th. And then January 19th, I'll be going to Siloam Springs to speak, and then we're back together again on February 2nd. So very busy in the next couple of months. December's been a whirlwind, I'll tell you for sure. And now I'd like to invite up Danny Keene. He's going to give you a report on the proceeds from the 2021 fall equipment auction.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to give you just a quick overview of our recent fall equipment auction. It was quite an event for us. It's something that we do annually in the fall. I think most of you are aware of that. The proceeds go back into the capital outlay budget for our equipment, road machinery and heavy equipment budget that Patrick takes care of for us. The odd thing about this year was that we did not, as a result of COVID, so many things that got suspended. The auction was one of them. And talking with the director and the staff, we didn't feel comfortable being a part of that large of a gathering, because it is a large gathering when we have an auction. So, meaning we did not have an auction in 2020, which created certainly a backlog of surplus vehicles and equipment. So in 2021, we just finished up November 3rd and 4th, and you can see on the slide the auction. It was instead of 1 day, it was 2 days. The numbers of things that we sold, they didn't double, but they were probably close to double. Due to slow delivery and supply chain issues that we're all dealing with in the world today, we're seeing the same things here. We're not getting delivery quite as quick as we would like. But with that said, it was a almost double auction. And so in our minds, in pie in the sky, and we have 3-year projections and weighted averages and things just like we do in construction. So we estimated we're going to have, if things go good, a $2 million plus auction. Nowhere in our wildest imagination did we think we would have the kind of auction that we had. And as you can see, the gross proceeds, $3,865,000, less the auctioneer's commission, which, by the way, is 6%, a very low commission for an auctioneer service. So net proceeds to the department, $3,633,000. So it was just, we knocked it out of the park. And I think, as you may recall, if you add the small secondary spring auction that we had of just a cross-section of selected trucks, which, by the way, both of these auctions served a tremendous service to some folks that were struggling to buy, and serving the farming community and the contracting community. They're struggling to get trucks just like we are to get things delivered. It was such a tremendous help to them. So in that secondary auction, we grossed $200,000. Add that to the 3.8, we had a $4 million year. So it was records. It was record setting times 2. So it was just a tremendous success. We enjoyed it. If you ever get a chance, I'd invite the commission to come to one of our auctions. It's quite an event, and it's a fun day. It's a long day, goes into the evening, but it's a great day. So that's, with that, I'll open to any questions if you might have any.
I can't pass you up. I didn't want you to be the only one that didn't ask a question.
Yes, sir.
Today. The equipment, is there a schedule on all the equipment, and whenever it gets to a certain age, it automatically goes into the auction, or is it subjectively chosen, say, well, this one is acting up, we'll get rid of it, or it's not acting up? I was just wondering how you choose what goes into the auction and what doesn't.
Both. There are definitely replacement schedules on every class code of equipment, from the smallest water pump up to the largest milling machine. With that said, we don't have, never do many DOTs have the available funds to fund what our program says that we would need. I will tell you, with this administration, and of course with you guys and ladies, our funding is tremendously better than it was a decade ago. Dating back to 7-8 years ago, our funding has more than doubled. So with that said, with not being able to fund everything that the schedule says needs to be replaced, then we have to prioritize and replace the most badly needed oldest. Usually it's scientific to a degree, but it still comes back to age and usage. So your highest miled, highest houred pieces of equipment and the oldest come into play, and that's how we decide what we replace and when we replace it. Yes,
Danny,
sir.
I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
We had a question come up recently about every now and then a low mileage vehicle will pass through, not very often.
Right.
And we answered that question assuming it was other types of usage or salt damage or something like that would cause that to happen. Can you shed a little light on that for us?
Just that. There's usually going to be some extenuating circumstance, and it could be just a history of problems. We, like with everything, that when you buy your vehicle, there's always that chance you get a lemon, and we have that. Certainly wouldn't want to bust out any manufacturer or dealer, but we do have that, where you're somewhat surprised as why are you selling a 10-year-old dozer when you have 20-year-old dozers in your fleet. Well, there's usually some operational reasons why we've done that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Danny.
Yes, ma'am.
Appreciate you.
Good job, Danny. Thank you.
So today I get to, we've gotten another award, the National Award for Excellence in Concrete Pavement. It's for the Connecting Arkansas program job that widened I-630 here in Little Rock between Baptist Hospital and University. The contractor on that job was Manhattan Road and Bridge, and their subcontractor that laid the asphalt was Cost Construction. So we're thrilled. This is a great award. It's called the Silver Winner for Concrete Pavement Excellence. And so I appreciate the staff that designed the project and our contractors, and I appreciate the American Concrete Pavement Association for giving us this award. So with that, that's my report.
That's a good one to end on. Congratulations to everybody that was involved in the work that led to that award. Another plaque on the wall, got plenty of them. Fellow commissioners, any items wish to bring up? All said and done. Anybody in the audience, anything else? If not, great meeting. Thank you all very much. That will conclude our last meeting of the year, and we'll crank back up in February on an official basis. Thanks a lot.